Hello my friends and welcome to the channel, and unlike my previous playlist videos of Dungeon Defenders 2 New Player's Guide, this is Dungeon Defenders Awakened. So here we are in the famous original Dungeon Defenders map, the Deeper Well. Now I'm not that familiar with this game, so this is not a player's guide. I just thought I'd introduce people who are not familiar with this. So let's say here we are doing the tutorial, just to give you an overview. So we'll hold G to ready up, and of course we get the build phase. Right, so it wants me to build something here. So we can let's do a wall, Evie's wall, our beams as we see here. Right, and let's get some fireball towers in. And I'm so familiar with the DD2 by now that I'll probably press the wrong buttons a few times, so bear with me. So we built a wall, we've got a flamethrower tower, but as you can see it's quite a different animal of a game from DD2. Heroes here don't have the same amount of abilities. We'll just go and see how we fare against these enemies. You may notice a bit of choppiness around the animation of the enemies, and that's a performance saving measure when they're at a distance. I've got my alternate range attack. Collect our big mana crystals. This of course is very different to the original DD Dungeon Defenders game version of the Deeper Well. It's the same lane layout and I think enemy types, but the design, the aesthetics, very different. They built this game in Unreal Engine 4, unlike the original Dungeon Defenders, which was probably with the very early phase of Unreal Engine 1 or 2. Healing. There's this heal. Let's open this chest. Let's get this lightning aura, electric aura built. And Dungeon Defenders had a great soundtrack, and it's been reimagined, reworked by the original composer, Ashvin Cohen. But it's essentially, this one in particular is very familiar, but it's slightly different orchestration, as you'd expect from a reworking. Very nice. So I do like the lighting and shadows in this game, but I feel like the textures on here, on these rock surfaces and the wood, is, if you go back to Dungeon Defenders, the original game, I think they're a bit more gritty and realistic. When the developers started this game, they specifically said on the Kickstarter launch that the Switch was their inspiration platform that they wanted to target. So I guess that's why they've sort of dumbed down the textures a bit. We'll have an explosive trap, so we're gonna... Yeah, I don't want to overlap here. Let's have some poison. And let's try this one called Darkness. I've got quite a good range on this fireball tower, so I want that to take effect before that kicks in. A thunder spike trap for the orc that's going to come this way. But the lighting is good on this game. It does cast shadows when you've got the visual settings set up high enough. As you see here, they're not always pinpoint accurate, it's not ray tracing. Now the original Dungeon Defenders game, I did put about 500 hours or more into that game in co-op mode with my brothers and friends. Got quite proficient at it, but I don't claim to be very proficient at DDA. It's quite different in terms of its stats progression and equipment. Double jump here on all the characters by default I think is nice to have, and indeed the developers patched that into DD2 via a shard that you can equip on your boots there. So unlike DD2, you cannot hot swap characters during combat phase, and that's true to form of the original Dungeon Defenders game. The developers said it's like You know, it's going to be based on Dungeon Defenders, but quality of life improvements from DD2. Fair play. And this, they said, was an interim game. They went away from Trendy Entertainment, formed their own studio called Chromatic Games, and they took ownership of all the licensing for Dungeon Defenders franchise. So their first project as Chromatic Games is this, DDA. And they did say on the Kickstarter the goal after this was to build DD3. So who knows what that will be. Will it be more like this? Or Dungeon Defenders, or Dungeon Defenders 2, or kind of a mix of both. So let's build the Deadly Strike Tower. A classic of the original Dungeon Defenders here. Very long range, pierces, and we'll have a go with our slow coach apprentice. So he's slow, but the rock there, the rock pet, does add a great deal of power upgrade to his defences. There's the Deadly Strike Tower doing its thing from afar. Very long range here. Now you can charge up his staff on his ability. Let's see. Look at those nice shadows. But that's the basic tutorial, introduction to DDA. I just thought my DD2 fans would appreciate this if they haven't seen it before or tried it. It's quite the quality game, it's just very different, and it's a bit difficult for me to go back to this and Dungeon Defenders from all my couple of thousand hours on DD2. But appreciate you joining me for this. Thanks very much for watching. I'll leave a link in the description to the playlists for Dungeon Defenders and DD2 I have, and I'll see you on the next video.